time for a little no sweat tech, where we're joined by Verena Franz from Grandades, who it's kind of the opposite to that today. You've rode the bike and you reckon you're all hot and sweaty.
Yes, today's all sweat tech.
All sweat instead of no. Fair enough. Well, look, we'll make sure the camera, because we film these, will zooms right in where the sweat is. All right.
Yeah, just on my forehead there.
Okay, we'll make sure we fix that up. Today we're on our track through getting the right device for somebody, because phones, tablets, computers, all of that. I guess, where do we start? Let's start with, I guess, the phone itself, because there's a zillion different types. How do we decide what phone is, what type of phone, and cost-wise is going to be beneficial for us?
Yeah, I think lots of people aren't really aware, but there are phones that are not smartphones. You can actually get an old brick phone still that just does calls and text messages and doesn't need internet on it. And for some people, that might be the right phone. Or you get a more like senior-based smartphone that has a station and put that at your house instead of a landline, because let's be honest, landlines are sort of dying out, yeah. Especially because of the scam calls. Everyone's so annoyed at that. And it's a bit easier to get that under control on the phones, even though we get scam text messages and scam calls now, but it's easier to block them through the mobile phone. So it's sort of the way that maybe you'll have a stationary phone at home at some point instead of a landline. And
particularly as well on your phone, because I know some people, they'll look at it and as soon as they see a private number, I'm not answering that, or even I don't know who the phone is, so they just don't answer it.
That's true. More control.
On a landline, you hear that ring and you just have to answer it. When we sort of decide we want to do a little bit more than just calls or maybe the odd text message, that's when the smartphones come into play. But again, Verena, that's a whole new world also.
Yeah, no, so this is sort of the question that if someone is fairly stationary and doesn't really need a phone out and about, I'm just like, oh, do you actually need a tablet and not a smartphone? Because you maybe want to game and read some emails or use social media, but you want the bigger screen, maybe a tablet is the way to go. Also, fun fact, if it's an Android tablet, it's actually a phone also if it has the mobile data enablement in it. You can do phone calls off the really big device too. You
seem to be always hovering on everything that's not Apple. I've been locked into Apple for 10 years. I can't change.
I also really recommend, if you're used to a system, stay with it. And if all your friends and family are on a particular system, join the same system. It makes your life easier.
Of course, even if we're moving to a tablet or we want a tablet with the phone, even then there's just so much variance, is it, even with the capacity of the device and what it'll do? I mean, how do we work out if I need to spend more to get something with a lot more memory and all of that?
It's sort of from your technical history. If you know, I have lots of photos and maybe lots of videos. Videos are the largest files we have in our personal lives at the moment. Then you might want to look at something that has big storage or storage extension possibilities, like putting in one of these extra micro SD cards or getting the extra iCloud storage. So then you're not so restricted with how much you spend on your device. But yeah, if the decision if a smartphone, tablet, or maybe even a laptop is the best for you really depends on how much do you use it, and do you still need to do administration in your private life? Because then that sort of hints that maybe you need some sort of computer form-like device. But I think the future actually lies within like the hybrid tablets, which makes sounds funky, but it means you can attach maybe a keyboard to your tablet, but also detach it. It can be a laptop or a tablet, and it means you'll save yourself having 4 devices to charge every night, because it might be that all of you for you.
I was actually going to think of that, as you mentioned, the little plug-in keyboards you can have for the tablet. I guess if we're at that stage where we're thinking maybe I do, maybe I don't, do we actually need to go up to a computer, or will the tablet probably cover all the things we need, or are there just some heavy-duty tasks where we just need to go up to a computer and leave the tablet for another conversation?
I think a tablet is sufficient for you if you do entertainment stuff with it, like Netflix and casting it to your screen. You read your emails, social media, you Google, you browse on the internet, on websites. You maybe FaceTime with your family and you take some photos and all that. Just stick with a tablet. Even if you write a lot of emails, if all you do is writing and your documents, you're happy to store them in a cloud or something like that, you don't need a laptop. You can actually get just a keyboard. If you love bigger screens and if you do lots of administration, which I mean, like if you have sheets to keep track of your spendings, or even there's apps for that now that might make that easier. But if you sort of like work with it on Word, Excel and all that, maybe a laptop is easier. Still not necessarily needed anymore. A laptop is more if you edit big files, like we're talking video editing, photo editing, maybe book editing, where you need a really fast brain in your machine. That's when I would say, yeah, maybe have a look at a laptop or a stationary computer.
The last thing too you want to cover off quickly is some of these digital assistant things like the Google Home, the Nest Hub, all of that sort of thing. Can you just describe for those who aren't familiar with them what they are and where that may come in handy for us, Verena?
Yeah, so there's a new generation of like your digital assistant, which is called a smart home display. So you've probably seen your friends that go like, come home and say like, hey Google, turn the lights on, or hey Siri, turn the heater on, or something like that, or tell me what the weather's like tomorrow. So it's going a step up where these have an actual screen, and they're meant to be like your house assistant. Basically, you go, hey Google, show me the recipe for the potato bake, and then it like brings up the video. Or you're like, hey Google, call grandma. Or your daughter comes home, it recognizes it's your daughter's voice, and it brings up your schedule for today, Catherine, and then says like, oh, you have your team spot then. And so it's up and coming, and I wanted just to mention it's actually not that expensive. For some people, a smart home device might be the way to go rather than a tablet. The new Google Nest I found is $149. Like your little Google Home devices, they're like $60.
This stuff sounds very Back to the Future Part 2-ish for me.
It is.
Very much. They're
and
on the
it's
money.
Here.
It's here. All right, a couple of things for us to think of there, Verena. The scamsters, they've been very busy as well. What have you found this week that might be making its way to somebody's inbox or mobile phone?
Yeah, so apparently since yesterday there's an increase in ANZ banking scams in text message form on your phone, where they're trying to get sensitive information about your bank account from you. So please don't text any information about your PINs, your account number, anything back. It's actually not ANZ. They would never contact you that way.
Yeah, and one of the big highlights might be if you don't have an ANZ account, big clue for you.
Yes, also.
But if you do and you think, maybe I'll need to check that, maybe just give them a call or contact them for a proper means, not via the message, delete them immediately.
Yeah, delete that immediately.
Verena Franz, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We get back out with the sweat and the big jumper and the bike, and we'll talk to you in a fortnight, all right?
Talk to you soon.
2NURFM, a broadcast service of the University of Newcastle.